1971. Steps of the Kaluga Maternity Hospital. A man stood anxiously with flowers, awaiting his wife's appearance. When she emerged, her face was tense, eyes filled with fear. What had happened? Why was the midwife hiding? He lifted the blanket covering the baby's face and recoiled. Before him lay a tiny, black-skinned infant. Enraged, the man stormed off, his wife trailing behind. But he turned and yelled, "Don't come near me or I'll hurt you." She stopped, swallowing her tears, glancing around at the onlookers. Had the baby been switched? Some smirked, others looked doubtful. The courtyard emptied, leaving her alone with the crying child. Kaluga, Tsiolkovsky Park. Once a place where the genius inventor rode his bicycle, the park had become a favorite spot for local mothers. However, one woman with a stroller was different. She didn't flaunt her baby. Instead, she hid him from everyone. One day, nearby people heard a child's desperate cry. Approaching closer, they saw the stroller on the edge of a staircase, about to tumble down. Rushing to help, they found the woman unconscious, but alive. What had happened? Did she try to navigate the stairs and fall, hitting her head? However, museum staff nearby reported seeing a motorcyclist push the woman down. The police arrived quickly. Why would someone attempt to kill a young mother? And who was she? The woman had no documents, but the sight of the baby made it clear. Identifying her would be easy. The child was black. Investigators contacted the maternity hospital, receiving a quick response. Marina Yuryeva, 25, a Kaluga resident. She had worked at the Kaluga SDC library before her maternity leave and had been discharged 2 weeks prior. Marina and her child were well remembered by the staff. The gossip about them continued even after discharge. Such a scandal was unheard of in Kaluga. Rumors of black children from the World Youth Festival had only reached Moscow. Many families faced drama when such children appeared after the festival. Had something similar happened to Marina Yuryeva? But it was no longer 1957. Nearly 14 years had passed since the festival. Where had the Kaluga librarian met her foreign prince? Investigators went to Yuryeva's home. Curious neighbors revealed that she lived alone with the child. Her husband had left a month ago after a terrible scandal. They had been happy with him doting on her. Their happiness crumbled at the hospital's doorstep, and many had heard the husband's threats. The motive was clear. Yuryev needed to be detained immediately. He wasn't at his mother's or his workplace. Where was he? Had he fled after the attack? Just then, a report came in. A motorcyclist had attacked a black man at the Kaluga plant's gate. The police arrived in time. The terrified foreigner was being pursued by the motorcyclist. Cornered, the black man stumbled and fell, hitting his head. As he got up, the motorcyclist dismounted, holding a canister of liquid. Opening it, the sharp smell of gasoline filled the air. The victim tried to crawl away, but the motorcyclist took out matches and a newspaper, creating a torch. He approached slowly, relishing his enemy's terror. The detectives sprang into action. Seeing them, the arsonist discarded the torch, jumped on his bike, and sped away. The motorcycle turned onto a narrow street, but a group of children blocked the way. Yuryev revved impatiently but couldn't move. He was detained. Within half an hour, he was giving a statement. He didn't deny anything. Rumors had reached him that a black man was visiting his wife. After the drama with the dark-skinned baby, Yuryev planned to file for divorce but couldn't tolerate this. He discovered the suitor was a French chemist-perfumer working at the plant. He decided to confront him man to man. The detectives felt conflicted. Punishing a wife's lover was understandable. But how could Yuryev attack Marina, his own flesh and blood? The man protested. He had threatened but never touched his wife. What about witnesses who claimed the attacker was on a motorcycle? The man stammered, "I was at work, sitting in my car. I'm a driver." Yuryev was sent to the detention center. The next morning, a concerned woman arrived at the police station. The detectives tensed. Why was such a distinguished guest here? Natalia Rudinskaya held a high position in the Kaluga Regional Committee of the CPSU. Known for her principles and strictness, what did she want with the Criminal Investigation Department? Natasha Evgenievna chose not to assert her authority. She explained that she was there solely to protect her driver. On the day of the murder, she saw him idly waiting in the car from her window. There wasn't much else the investigators could do but release him, especially with such a strong alibi. Yuryeva was sent home, forcing detectives to restart the investigation. Who would want to harm an ordinary librarian who had a black child? Could it be the child's father? Perhaps Yuryeva had been blackmailing him? The detectives decided to look into Fabien, the French chemist from the Kaluga plant who had nearly been blown up by the jealous Yuryev. Why did the foreigner visit Marina? Was there more to their relationship? In 1947, Stalin decreed a ban on marriages with foreigners, met with harsh penalties under the infamous Article 58. However, Brezhnev lifted this ban in 1969. Yet, marrying a foreign citizen still required a mountain of paperwork and navigating bureaucratic hurdles. Still, some women pursued these relationships at any cost, seeing foreign men as fairy tale princes. Maybe Marina Yuryeva sought a better life for herself, contemplating divorce and marrying the black Frenchman. Detectives decided to talk to Fabien. Upon seeing Marina Yuryeva's photo, he immediately looked sorrowful. "Oh, this woman killed me." It turned out the Frenchman had only met Marina once, and that was after the child was born. Rumors about the black baby and the tumultuous split between the Yuryevs swirled at the plant. Fabien constantly heard whispers of shame, which baffled him. Would this unfortunate woman never remarry with such a child? The foreigner, who saw the child as like himself, decided to meet the family everyone shunned. When he saw Marina, he felt an immediate connection. She was sweet, simple, sad, with a touching black baby in the stroller. But Marina asked him not to return. "I will wait for my husband. Sooner or later, Igor will understand everything. I need no one else." So the Frenchman was innocent. But who then tried to kill Marina Yuryeva? Maybe the motorcyclist had nothing to do with it. Perhaps he was just passing by, and the nervous young mother got scared, ran and fell. Yet the detectives soon found the story was more complex. Doctors reported that Yuryeva had come out of her coma. Detectives rushed to her. Marina insisted she hadn't been mistaken. The motorcyclist had attacked her. But who could it have been? She shook her head, having no idea. What worried her more was something else. Her husband hadn't visited her in the hospital even once, indicating he hadn't forgiven her and would never return. Despondent, Marina climbed over the railings and stood on the narrow ledge of a stone bridge. In just a few seconds, her miserable life would end. But then someone stood beside her. She turned to see Igor. "Let's jump together then," he suggested. "I know everything. The police told me. Let's go home." That same day, Igor returned to Marina, trying to forget the past. But whenever he cried, the baby would involuntarily shudder. He couldn't believe that the dark-skinned child of white parents was the rarest case of genetic mutation, occurring once in a century. Soon, Marina decided to talk to her husband. "This is not your child." Igor froze. "And not mine." She explained that the baby wasn't theirs because any mother knows in her heart if a child is hers. The Yuryevs decided to go to a lab to determine the child's parentage, which at the time was done through blood type analysis. It wasn't particularly accurate, but it was the best they had. The process was slow, and they were placed on a waiting list. In her quest for truth, Marina prepared to go to Moscow, to the Academy of Medical Sciences. She was convinced the baby had been switched at the hospital, and a major scandal was brewing, leading to another tragedy. That evening, Dr. Evgeny Baryshnikov from the Kaluga Maternity Hospital was exhausted after a difficult delivery and a subsequent C-section. Coupled with his personal problems, he was eager to get home. Walking his usual route, he crossed Smolenskaya Street without noticing the dark vehicle approaching. Its headlights were off, the engine silent. The doctor only noticed the danger at the last second, managing only to scream. The truck that hit the doctor was found on the lawn, its engine cold. Had it rolled under its own inertia? The driver was found at home and dragged out of bed, holding his head in his hands. The truck's door lock was broken, a fact known to the local boys, who often played in the cab. It was possible that they had accidentally released the handbrake. Somehow the truck had rolled downhill, hitting a pedestrian. Authorities decided not to pursue a murder investigation. But the meticulous Kaluga detectives noticed one detail. Someone might have been in the cab, wearing gloves to avoid leaving fingerprints. They could have aimed the truck at the doctor and then jumped out. But who would want the doctor dead? Detectives delved into Dr. Baryshnikov's life and surroundings, uncovering nothing suspicious except one episode. This doctor had handled the controversial delivery of Marina Yuryeva. Now Marina and her husband had registered for a paternity test. Could a baby swap be the motive behind Baryshnikov's murder? But who would do such a thing? The aggrieved parents? They hadn't even received the test results yet. And critically, why would they kill the doctor? The detectives decided to search for clues within the maternity hospital itself. They interviewed everyone who worked on the day the black baby was born. Midwife Irina Sonicheva seemed particularly uneasy. Yes, she had assisted during Yuryeva's delivery, and yes, everything had gone smoothly. But why were her eyes darting around so nervously? Why did she clutch her handkerchief so tightly? Suspicion grew that she was hiding something and perhaps scared of someone. So they decided to keep a close watch on her. Tracking the midwife proved challenging. She rarely left the hospital, taking one shift after another, seemingly consumed by her work. She was never seen in the city. The investigation hit a roadblock, and then out of the blue, a breakthrough. One day, as a doctor passed by the hospital's utility room, she heard a peculiar noise. A door flew open. A stranger's face appeared. I bumped into the cabinet. I'm new here, still getting used to things. Just came to grab some fish oil, said the man in a white coat, pulling the doctor along in conversation. Heard about the recent doctor's murder. What a nightmare. They chatted as they walked away from the utility room. After the man left, the doctor realized something. Fish oil? Impossible. In 1970, fish oil was banned in medicine, deemed harmful. Though rehabilitated 30 years later in capsule form in 1971, fish oil was feared and removed from all medical facilities. How could it be in the hospital now? Bewildered, the doctor returned to the utility room and opened the door, only to freeze. Irina Sonicheva lay on the floor, a pool of blood spreading around her. That same day, the Yuryev couple submitted the paternity test results to the police. Negative. The black baby wasn't theirs. The baby must have been swapped at the hospital. Now those involved in the scheme were being systematically eliminated. But who was the murderer? Likely someone with a criminal record. They sifted through photos of repeat offenders and showed them to the doctor who had seen the intruder. He confidently identified one of the pictures. Fedor Shapoval, born in 1935, with multiple convictions for robbery and murder. Cunning, theatrical, highly dangerous. But what was his connection to the Yuryev family and the black baby? The detective showed Shapoval's photo to the couple. Marina shrugged, but Igor grew anxious. I just saw him. I'd taken my boss, Rudinskaya, home for lunch, and he was loitering near her building. The detectives raced to their car and drove to the scene. They arrived just in time to see the party worker and Shapoval. He was gripping her hand, looking displeased. Upon seeing the police, he drew a knife from his pocket. The detectives froze. As Shapoval disappeared into the building, they cautiously followed him. The door to Rudinskaya's apartment slammed shut. What now? Suddenly, it swung open. She shouted that he had jumped out the window. A detective approached the open window and looked down. There was a patch of untouched hogweed below. How had Shapoval escaped without disturbing it? He must still be in the apartment, too low to hide under the couch, but maybe the bathroom? They commanded him to come out with his hands up, or they would shoot. After several tense seconds, the door opened. Shapoval emerged, glaring at Rudinskaya and angrily declaring, "I won't take the fall for this." The high-ranking party official had fallen in love like a schoolgirl with her chauffeur. Young, tall, and handsome, why should he belong to an ordinary librarian instead of her? Smart, wealthy, and capable of making his life a dream. Natalia knew her age was against her, but she had connections, money, and a luxurious apartment. What more could any Soviet man want? But Igor Yuryev didn't envy material luxuries. He was content with his small apartment and his not-so-wealthy but beloved wife. How many times had Rudinskaya tried to ensnare him? She had even undergone a facelift at the Institute of Beauty, visited fortune tellers for love spells. The older woman had lost her mind over him, even positioning herself strategically at party meetings to watch him waiting in the car. When Marina became pregnant, Igor was over the moon. Rudinskaya felt a pang of bitterness. Now they would be a happy family, while she would never bear his child. But why shouldn't she? A cynical plan formed in her mind. To bribe the medical staff, swap Igor's baby for an abandoned one, and adopt the child herself. No one would notice the switch. But there was a hitch. On the day Marina went into labor, only one abandoned baby was available. A black baby. Rudinskaya saw an opportunity. Not only would she steal someone else's child, but she would also destroy the Yuryevs' marriage. How could a husband accept a baby that wasn't his? She ordered the medical staff to sedate Marina and convince her of a genetic mutation. The tripled reward ultimately convinced the scoundrels in white coats. The child of the Yuryevs ended up with Rudinskaya, causing a rift in the couple's relationship due to the unusual foundling. The official cradled the baby, a piece of her beloved's bloodline, dreaming that she would soon have Igor himself. But things didn't go as planned. The submissive and quiet librarian showed her true character. Marina didn't believe in the mutation theory spanning generations. Her entire family hailed from the Urals. How could there be an African foreigner among them? When the young woman decided to head to Moscow, Dr. Baryshnikov panicked. The regional party official would always find a way to cover herself. He, the doctor, would be arrested. What to do? Then he remembered. Igor Yuryev often visited the maternity hospital on his motorcycle. Half the city knew how furious he was. What if the problem could be removed, framing the husband in the process? Fortunately, the scoundrel failed to kill Marina. Now it was Rudinskaya's turn to be frightened. The situation spiraled out of control, and the police got involved. The official made a dreadful decision to eliminate the doctor and the midwife. The recidivist Shapoval took on the horrific task in exchange for money and a place to live. Rudinskaya was certain she could get rid of Shapoval afterward, but her days of freedom were already numbered. Natalia Rudinskaya imagined herself a master of destinies, determined to ruin others' lives to bring happiness to her own. She miscalculated. She gained neither another woman's husband nor another woman's child. All she got were prison bars and hostile cellmates for 15 years. Igor and Marina regained their son and raised him into a good person. Today, they are happy grandparents. The African foundling also grew up and now lives in France with a new father who adopted him. Remember the chemist Fabien from the Kaluga plant? Well, it turned out that But that's another story entirely. To make sure you don't miss it, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and leave your comments. Your feedback is very important to me.